Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Cricket Podcast. I'm Nick, as ever joined by Azza, and we've got our first final to preview, Azza, in the T20 format. It's the PSL final. Islamabad United pulled what us Delhi fans can call a Delhi, topping the group but not making it to the finals. How excited are you about this, Azza?
Hi, Nick. Welcome everyone to episode 2 of this podcast, and I'm super excited personally because it's two teams that are not as big in the competition who are going to be making it, and that brings up a lot of variables to pick players who might be lesser known, and I'm really hoping to educate the listeners today. That's my main goal.
So let's start by looking at some of the better performers from either side.
Yeah.
Why don't we kick off with some of the boys from Peshawar?
Yeah, let's do Peshawar. I just want to say quickly, Nick, this competition is so interesting, the PSL. Two of us, we've got strong Indian roots. We follow the IPL, and in the PSL, it just seems like they have much more of a fast bowling presence. And I mean, why are we surprised? It's Pakistan. They have the best fast bowlers historically, maybe after West Indies. So if we start with Peshawar, again, there's so many good fast bowlers to choose from who've been doing really well. But the top of the pile there for them is Wahab Riaz. He's been exceptional, especially if you look at his performance since the tournament was moved to Abu Dhabi.
It's interesting you bring that up. We need to bring that up. I think from a fantasy point of view, that's an important consideration. Like with the IPL last year when it was played in the UAE, you have to consider the venue when you're looking at fantasy points. Certain players like Wahab, you've mentioned, their performances seem to have gone up a level when they're playing in a different venue. What I want to really point out here as well for the listeners is that a lot of these Pakistani international cricketers will be used to playing in Abu Dhabi, where they're playing the final tomorrow as well. So these considerations are important. These are the little edges that will help you in your fantasy game.
Definitely.
What else? Wahab Riaz, you've mentioned. Who else? Who else has stood out?
Yeah, for sure. So let's just get the other fast bowler who I'm looking at very carefully. It's from Peshawar. It's Umaid Asif. I think he should be a no-brainer in your team. On most apps, he's a 9 credit pick, so it's not expensive. It's less than the average of 9.1 credits. So it's a good cheap buy. Well, I wouldn't say cheap, but it's a good buy. So Umaid Asif, a no-brainer. So that's it, for the big fast bowlers who I want to be looking at from Peshawar.
And Azza, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think at least some of the apps have Umaid Asif listed as an all-rounder. So
exactly.
There's a little bit of scope for you to get perhaps some batting points picked up there as well, lower order. And it also frees up a bowling spot, which means if you like more than a couple of bowlers on either side, you can still have room to pick two bowlers alongside Wahab Riaz if you so choose to pick Wahab Riaz, for example.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And what's interesting as well, Nick, is in the last week, we've seen two batsmen from Peshawar in good form as well. Namely, Hazratullah Zazai from Afghanistan and Shoaib Malik, the old workhorse of Pakistan cricket. He's played across 3 decades now, I think, and he's still showing that he's got caliber. He's been good in the last week. He's also been very good in Abu Dhabi in particular. So I would go for Shoaib Malik for sure.
So you've touched upon Shoaib Malik, and I think your reasons for bringing him up are very valid. He's been scoring consistently. He's been scoring at a decent strike rate. He's striking at about 150. If you refer back to our Insights episode, which is up on all our platforms as well, you'll understand the importance of strike rate in T20 cricket. So let's go to another sort of old gun who plays for Multan, and that's Sohail Tanvir, who's really sort of crept up a little bit. He may not be
Hmm.
the highest point scorer overall, either as a bowler or as a batsman towards the tail end. He's now listed as an all-rounder. But he's come in with some clutch performances towards the end of the tournament. I
Yeah.
wonder if you have any opinion on Sohail Tanvir, and if not, any other players out of that Multan Sultan's team that's really
Look, Nick.
catching your
There's
eye.
so many players from that Multan team that are catching my eye, and this team has really picked up form in the last week or so. So in particular, I'm looking at Sohail Tanvir. He's been the highest scorer, points scorer in the last week for them. But then if we look at it in terms of sort of the entire tournament, you're also looking at Sohaib Maqsood. What a knock he played against Islamabad. He racked up a
Yeah,
lot
it was
of points for
phenomenal,
them.
phenomenal.
Yeah, especially when the team was in trouble. And then, Charles has been looking good. They've found a very solid opener in Shan Masood. Very promising, actually, Nick.
I I really want to also touch upon Mohammad Rizwan. Behind
Yeah,
behind I think only behind only Babar Azam as the overall points run
yeah,
scorer in the tournament.
yeah,
He's captaining, he's scoring runs, averaging about 44 so far,
yeah.
striking at 130. He's the kind of profile of player that that we mentioned in our insights episode. Someone who might not necessarily blow away um, an opposition, but will get you those runs consistently. And as he bats longer, that strike rate picks up. For viewers who are not familiar with the PSL, he reminds me almost of a KL Rahul, that kind of
Mm,
batsman, also a
yeah.
wicket keeper, a young captain for his franchise, comes in, he likes to settle himself, and then he really gets going, and you're banking on him to get you that 30 score.
Yeah, absolutely. So I agree. The reason I did not mention Mohammad Rizwan is, of course, I mean, the listeners should know about him. He's an international quality player. He's also not looked as much in touch in the last couple of games, So that was one of my sort of, let's go by recent form and think about who's doing well, because that momentum is carrying that team forward at the moment. They have that solid base of Rizwan. But just quickly, speaking of momentum, can we just touch upon another Pakistani fast bowler from Multan? It's Shahnawaz Dhani. There's already talk of him being selected for the World Cup, and he's just been racking up wickets. Like he's far ahead of anyone else in the competition at this point.
Yeah, I think he's a young bowler. He's a great shout. One thing that I like about him, um, as a fantasy pick, he's someone that he's top of the wickets tally at the moment for the PSL, but he's someone who seems to get his wickets in clusters. If you look at his last few performances, he's got a game where he's gone without a wicket, or a game with one wicket or two wickets, but in between that, he's got
Hmm.
two fourfers. That's very, very good for your fantasy point scoring.
Exactly. And he's also got this raw ability to pick up wickets that you're talking about that reminds me, again, from my India-centric view of Kagiso Rabada from who when he plays for Delhi, in the Indian League. So it's very similar, So even if he's not giving you those four wickets in a match, which is, as we covered in the Insights episode, you get points for every wicket, but then you get bonus points as well for a four for Hall. So it's great if you're picking him, but he's also giving you a wicket or two every match.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I think that's a brilliant segue, because both of us are probably going to have Dhani as one of our must picks from
yeah.
Multan. So why don't you start off with Peshawar? Who are our three, or your 3 or 4 must picks from Peshawar when you're making your fantasy 11 team?
Yeah, interesting. So I'm definitely picking Wahab Riaz. He's listed as a bowler. He costs 9 credits, again, lower than what's required. And he also gives you runs every now and then with the bat if the team has a little bit of a collapse. So he's my sort of big pick. Going on recent form again, I'm picking Shoaib Malik. I think he's again, he offers you that, of course, brilliant batting capability. He can also bowl. So brilliant. Umaid Asif, who we just touched upon, that's my third. And finally, I'm sort of torn between am I picking Shorfain Rutherford or am I picking Hazratullah Zazai? It's really a toss-up, and it depends on the listener's choice. But what I will say is that they both cost the same number of credits, but Hazratullah Zaza is going into this match with some newfound form, and so you should look at that.
So I agree. I agree with what you've said.
Yeah.
If it does influence the listeners or perhaps yourself, I for me I'm not torn. I'm going for Rutherford. It's just, Rutherford is the kind of player where you're already backing players in the form of Shoaib Malik. When you're looking at the Multan side, you're probably going to go with Shoaib Maqsood, Mohammad Rizwan. These are players who are going to guarantee you good points as well. I like the idea of someone like Sherpain Rutherford.
Yeah.
When I talk about Multan, I'm going to talk about the risk of playing Johnson Charles as well.
Yeah.
Because these are the players that are going to get me those risky points that I might struggle. It might be a gamble, but they can win me this thing outright and really push me ahead against my teammates.
For sure, yeah. And just lastly, Nick, we didn't touch upon the wicketkeeper from Peshawar, who's been Kamran Akmal for them. Now, he's picked up a lot of points so far in this tournament. That's no doubt about that, absolutely. But his recent form is what I'm looking at when I'm not mentioning him. But I will say, he costs 9.5 credits. Again, that's more than what you would be paying on average for a player. So just keep that in mind. I'm not sure Kamran Akmal is a good pick going into this for your main team. But if you're looking at slightly different combinations of team, he can be interesting.
Yep. No, I think that's a very good shout.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and give you my four picks for Multan. I think we've already touched upon Suhail Tanvir, we've touched upon Mohammad Rizwan, we've touched upon Dhani. I'm gonna then bring up one name that we haven't actually brought up yet, who is, I think, gonna be a great pick, and that's Imran Tahir.
I was just looking at him
really
too.
Well, he's been bowling really well, Azza. We've seen him in the IPL. He played for Delhi at one point. Has a short run up, but runs a marathon when he gets a wicket. He's a brilliant bowler to watch, and I think I like him because he's experienced. I think in a final situation, and this is sort of not looking at it from just a pure fantasy points point of view, he's someone who's going to deal well with the pressure. He's got that experience, and I think batsmen will try to go after him, and they will hold out. He's someone who's going to get those wickets. He's going to get those crucial breakthroughs.
Yeah,
I think what's a good shout.
Can I just add to that as well? What's crazy about Imran Tahir is how cheap he is as well on these fantasy apps. He's costing you 8.5 credits. That's an absolute steal. So I think you should definitely give him a look in.
And I think picking him is not an alternative to picking someone else. So that means he should be in your consideration.
Yeah.
On the topic of Multan, Azza, any other players that you would have maybe different to what I've had?
So you're looking at Charles. You're giving him a look in. Are you also giving Shan Masood a look in then?
Yeah, I think the benefit of having someone like Tahir, having someone like I have Russo as a pick in there as well.
Okay.
A couple of these players are a bit cheaper, so it allows you then to look at having both Maqsood and Charles and Rizwan, pack that batting in as well.
Yeah. I think lastly, I'd just like to sort of mention another player who we've not yet mentioned, but I'm not sort of endorsing him as my main pick, but I'm just going to say Kushdil Shah. He's sort of a player who's not consistent, but he has a strong hitting ability. He's got a very high strike rate, and when he does come good, he's going to get you a lot of points. So he can be an X factor in a sort of fourth or fifth team that you're looking at for these competitions.
And X factors can make a difference, but
definitely.
But guarantees that will make a bigger difference are good captaincy and vice captaincy selections.
Yeah.
So hit me with your preferred choice of captain and vice captain for this match.
It's interesting, Nick, because you and I have gone for slightly different approaches in our teams, but I'm suspecting, I don't know your captain and vice captain, but I'm suspecting they might be similar. So I'm going for Sohaib Maksud as my captain and Wahab Riaz as my vice captain. Those are my two picks. And purely based on, if you look at overall points in the tournament, the most points aggregated in this match are by Rizwan. But then if you're just looking at recent form, these are the two guys who are really standing out.
So I've got completely different captain and vice captain. See, that's
okay.
That shows our synergy, I suppose. But I'm looking at Mohammad Rizwan as my captain. You just touched upon the fact that whilst overall he's a top point scorer, his recent form might not be great. It's because of that I'm backing him. He's too good a player not to come good eventually.
Yeah.
He's an international player. He's a captain. He's the sort of player I think will put his hand up and say, I'm going to be counted today. So he's my captaincy pick.
Sure.
And my vice captaincy pick is actually going to be Shahnaz Dhani.
Okay.
Bit out of left field. And it's not just because he's the top wicket taker and he's also got a lot of points. It's just because the last match he played against Zalmi, which was about 10 days ago, he picked up 4 for 31.
That's true.
Got good form against this side. And I think that he didn't pick up wickets again in the last match. And again, he's another player who's performed consistently. He's got to perform against this team. I'm backing him as my vice captain.
I think that's a good pick as well. He would have been sort of my third pick or another pick for another team, to be honest. Lastly, I'd like to say, if you're also looking at another left field choice, go for someone like Shoaib Malik. He can be interesting. Go for someone like Imran Tahir even. That can be interesting. We're very late into the tournament. The wickets have started deteriorating. Who knows what might happen? The spinner might come into play.
Yep, I think that's brilliant. And I think that's a great point to end this discussion. So thanks a lot for listening. We are available on YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Ghana, wherever you get your podcasts. The links are in the description. Please, if you're on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. You can support us on Patreon. And we're going to just keep on trying to give you content that we think will be useful. That's all really there is to say, Azza. Thanks a lot for listening. Azza, any final words?
No, that's it. Really enjoy the last match of this Pakistan League. I think it'll be very interesting. I think we might even be done with the test match, the World Test Championship final by that time. So let's see how it goes. We have a lot of cricket coming up today.
Yep, I'm excited. There's also England, Sri Lanka coming up. So we're going to be touching upon that series. So there's a lot of cricket coming our way.
Yeah.
Please support us. And we hope that you enjoy this podcast.
Brilliant.
Thanks, Azza.
Thanks, Nick.